who could not read or write, who said her birth was not recorded, who said her Sunday name was the one I use, who was everything people call evil, whose parent was the cold church. Who was she? I'm watching my hands grow old. I keep the doily she made. Moved to the country. I'll never know how we managed the 3 miles home from the pub across the fields with the baby on your back and me picking cowpeas and potatoes out of the field in moonlight because of worry about tomorrow in those echoey rooms, servants' quarters, but with a fireplace the biggest I'd ever been close up to and a deep window seat in the square stone bay. The first day, our city cat disappeared, only to fall 48 hours later from up the chimney. We nursed him, shivering, fed him on what we had, and after a week opened the door, and there was grass. And if he'd had tiptoes, he would have been on them. Him and the baby slept curled together till the day she stood upright, and I saw him clock that she was human and leap all 4 feet off the ground and yowl out before he skedaddled and was gone for good. The piggeries. Seaside towns are like that. In summer, there's work, and you're hard pushed for somewhere to stay. In winter, there's idleness, but empty property. It was October when we moved into a holiday flat in Brading that had only done 1 season. Oh, but it was cold. Just a 2-bar electric fire. Mr. Downhill had built the place himself, told us how 18 months back it had been pigs, and when the bottom had fallen out of that market, he'd turned to tourists. In summer, he could rake it in, but now the 6-flat block was standing fallow. We could have one cheap if it suited. Yes, a kiddie was okay with him. And that morning, walking on the seafront, you in the backpack, happy with your bare feet dangling, 2 women behind us talking, I hear no shoes and disgusting. And then the voices louder. People like that shouldn't be allowed to have children. Bare feet enraged my father. He'd see my filthy soles from coal dust clogged in the carpet and order me to cover them up, with some racism added in about not running round like a little native and worse, and to do something about my unruly hair. He said I looked like the wild woman of Borneo. I hadn't the faintest who she was, but the sound of her fired me. Perhaps she was big enough and scary enough and up for it. The next poem's called Keggy, which was a word invented by Bryony when she was about 2 years old. I've put a definition of it here. Keggy, an imaginary item given often by a small child as an invitation to play. She's decided, holds it precise in a pincer of finger and thumb, outstretches her arm, darts me a look. I offer my palm, and she places the keggy, just glancing me, leaves it. I notice its weight. This one is not for my pocket, not for sniffing or keeping or eating. I turn it around with the fingers of my other hand, test its roughness and smoothness and shine, cradle it, offer it back. She allows me to pour it from my hand to hers.
The blanket, 3. She wishes the wool she was twisting was from the sheep across the river she can see from her kitchen window. The wool is in balls of 50 grams and 6 colours. It's bouncy, but the sheep who grew it were in Argentina. Here she is, isolate, in her own small space, twisting wool that's travelled further than her. She wanted a soft merino and could find none locally, so clicked into the global market as the virus continued its own travels, hitching its ride with us.
King Cotton. My forebears were twisters and weavers and iron grinders in the machinery of a country whose rewards were for them as has. From him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Stolen African children in the stolen land of America picked the cotton that in those bloody holds was shipped to England's children to spin in the Lancashire mills. Somewhere there are kings, but here the knocker-up woke a child to labour from dark till dark in the dampness of the mill. Now, in Uzbekistan and Bangladesh, farmers and factory inspectors count the stolen hours of boys and girls who make fast fashion that speeds from them to us to landfill.
The have-nots. 2021. It's cold. She posts about the measly food delivered like a backhander to her locked-down children. She WhatsApps the picture to a footballer, a millionaire, no older than herself. She'll say what's on her mind. Her gut doesn't need another punch.
1974. The cornflakes and beans we fed on all week just ran out. I push my 2 kids 3 miles to the social to claim. Keep them occupied in a hard room of mute and jittery people. My turn at the window, and I answer the woman's clipped questions.
1910. The boy places his boots on the pledge counter, waits in silence, takes a ticket from the old man's clean fingers. Coins are counted out. The boy scrapes them up, clutches the hoard for his mother, runs barefoot home.
The joke. When my mother said I wasn't like anyone in the family in any way at all, I breathed, like if it was a relief to discover that you're adopted, though I knew I wasn't. And this was a reprieve from the obligation of belonging to a family. Another time, though, she warned, a trait can skip a generation just to fool you. Is my vicious grandmother in me, I find a record that might be her, under a false name, early 20s, on her own, with 2 babies. The blanket 4. How to order these squares. I recall that 4 colours can be used for the countries of the world on a map without their conjoining. But this is simpler than countries. No disputed borders or political nightmares. I pile up the granny squares to count them. Some are loose and large, others tighter and smaller. I cannot avoid knotting my mood into them. This could be a problem as I stitch them together. I'm trying to work out how many will be needed, but my sums come to nothing. Just how to get precisely the right feeling of randomness, and if it's ever possible to avoid patterns, repetitions. Washing the doily. It is St. Bridget's Day. Warm water in the bathroom sink. 2 drops of shampoo. Dunk the doily. Squeeze gently as the cotton stiffens. Leave it to soak, perhaps a minute for every year, but don't count or look at the clock. Rinse in lukewarm water 5 or 6 times until it runs clear. Roll in a towel, put to dry flat. Examine some of its intricacy.
I wanna hear